The first snow of the season made Ashford Ridge look harmless. The sidewalks disappeared under a smooth white layer, tree branches sagged with powder, and the whole neighbourhood had that muffled quiet like the world had been wrapped in cotton. It was the kind of morning where people stepped outside just to breathe it in. Cold air, clean light, the promise that everything would slow down for a few hours. Leah Garner stepped onto her porch with a travel mug of coffee and her phone in her pocket, already thinking about the day's errands. She lived 2 doors down from her brother Caleb, and on weekends they often met up to help their grandmother Nana Jo with whatever she needed, shoveling her steps, taking out trash, checking her meds. Leah was halfway down the porch stairs when she saw the prints. Small paw marks pressed into the untouched snow at the edge of her walkway. They came from the street, crossed her lawn, and headed toward the side yard between her house and the neighbours. Leah frowned, following them with her eyes. They weren't squirrel tracks. Too big. Not rabbit. Wrong pattern. They looked like cat or small dog prints, but the stride was uneven, like the animal had been limping or dragging one foot. Leah felt a tug in her chest. Winters in Ashford Ridge weren't brutal, but they were cold enough that a small animal could get into trouble fast if it was injured. She took one step onto the lawn, boots crunching, and crouched. The prints were fresh, edges still sharp. No wind had softened them. And there was something else, a faint smear beside one set of tracks. Not a lot, but enough to make Leah's stomach tighten. A hint of pink in the snow. Blood. Leah straightened quickly, scanning the quiet street. No movement, no neighbours outside yet. The world still looked peaceful, but those prints told a different story. She pulled out her phone and called Caleb. He answered on the second ring, voice sleepy. "What's up?" "Are you awake?" Leah asked. "I've got fresh paw prints in my yard. Looks like a small animal, maybe hurt. There's blood." That woke him up. "Where?" "Coming from the street, heading between my house and Mrs. Donnelly's." Caleb's voice sharpened. "Don't go sticking your hands under porches." "I wasn't planning to," Leah said, even though she was already stepping carefully along the trail. "Just come over. Bring gloves." Caleb was there in 3 minutes, hood up, boots on, breath visible. He took one look at the track line and his face went serious. "Yeah," he muttered. "That's not good." They followed the paw prints slowly, careful not to step on them. The tracks led into the narrow side yard where snow had drifted deeper against the fence. The marks became more frantic there, more compressed, like the animal had paused, turned in circles, then moved again. Leah's heart thumped. Maybe it's trapped. Caleb scanned the ground. Or it ran from something. The tracks continued toward the back of the yard, where the fence met a line of shrubs and then the shared alley behind the houses. Beyond the fence was a small municipal park with a maintenance shed and a row of dumpsters. The paw prints stopped at the fence. Not at a gap. Not at a hole under it. They just ended. Leah stared. That makes no sense. Caleb crouched, brushing snow aside near the base of the fence with a gloved hand. If it went under, you'd see a drag mark. He looked up. If it climbed, you'd see disturbed snow on the fence rails. Leah scanned the fence line. No disturbance, no scrape, no break. The prints ended like the animal had vanished. Leah's breath puffed out in a tight exhale. So where did it go? Caleb stood and looked beyond the fence toward the park. Unless someone picked it up. Leah's stomach clenched. Or it went through something we can't see. They followed the fence line slowly, searching for anything. A broken board, a loose latch, a gap behind the shrubs. That's when Leah noticed something else in the snow near the shrubs. Not paw prints, boot prints. One set, adult-sized, fresh. They came from the alley side, approached the fence corner, and then, like the paw prints, they stopped. Caleb stared at them, jaw tightening. "That's recent," he said. Leah's skin prickled. "Someone was back here this morning." Caleb followed the boot prints with his eyes. They led right to the spot where the paw prints ended, then disappeared as if the person had stood there and turned around carefully, stepping back into their own tracks to hide where they'd gone. Leah felt cold spread through her chest. "Caleb," she whispered, "what if someone is taking animals?" Caleb didn't answer immediately. He leaned closer to the shrubs and reached down. His glove brushed something hard under the snow. He pulled gently. A thin strip of plastic, like part of a zip tie. Leah's stomach dropped. "No." Caleb held it up, eyes narrowing. "This isn't from a snow shovel." Leah's pulse hammered. "So, what do we do?" Caleb looked beyond the fence again, toward the park's maintenance shed, half hidden behind trees. And then he pointed. "Look!" Leah followed his finger. On the far side, near the shed, the snow was disturbed, like something had been dragged, and there, half covered by a drift, was a dark shape, a small animal carrier. Leah's breath caught. "Hidden in plain sight," Caleb whispered, "because from the street you'd never see it. But from here, following the paw prints, it was suddenly obvious. Something had been placed there on purpose, and whatever was inside had left the prints that led them straight to it. They didn't climb the fence. Not yet." Caleb's first instinct was the same as Leah's. Rush over, open it, pull out whatever was trapped. But the boot prints and the zip tie fragment had flipped a switch in his brain. This wasn't just a lost pet. This could be cruelty, or something worse. Leah took out her phone. "I'm calling animal control," she whispered. Caleb nodded. "And I'm calling the non-emergency police line. Someone's been back there." While Leah spoke quietly to the dispatcher, giving the park location, describing the carrier, Caleb kept his eyes locked on the shed area. The morning light was bright, and the park looked normal from a distance. A swing set, a walking path, a trash can. Nothing that screamed danger. That normality made it creepier, because the carrier was there like an object you weren't supposed to notice. A few minutes later, a police cruiser pulled into the park lot with tires crunching on snow. Two officers stepped out, Officer Maren Liu and Officer Grant Havel, both moving carefully, scanning. Animal control arrived right behind them, a woman named Rhea Kim in a heavy jacket, carrying a thick blanket and a pole loop. Leah and Caleb met them by the fence corner, speaking fast. Leah pointed. "There, behind the shed." Officer Liu followed her gaze and went still. "I see it." Rhea Kim's face tightened. "That's a pet carrier." Caleb showed the zip tie fragment in his glove. "Found this near the tracks." Officer Havel's expression hardened. "Okay, we treat this as a potential cruelty case. Nobody touches anything until we document." They moved through the gate into the park, Leah and Caleb following a few steps behind like anxious shadows. As they approached the shed, the disturbed snow became clearer. Drag marks, scuffed patches, a trail like something had been pulled into the drift and tucked away. The carrier sat half buried, door facing the shed, as if whoever placed it wanted it hidden from the walking path. Rhea knelt, careful. She didn't open it yet. She leaned close and listened. For a second, there was only the wind. Then, faintly, scratching. A thin, desperate scritch against plastic. Leah's chest tightened. "Something's alive." Officer Liu nodded, jaw clenched. She held up her phone and took photos from multiple angles. Rhea slipped on thicker gloves. "Okay," she murmured, voice soft like she was talking to the animal inside. "We're here." She checked the carrier door. It was secured, not with the normal latch, but with a zip tie looped through the bars like a crude lock. Leah felt sick. "That's why we found the plastic strip." Rhea nodded grimly. Someone zip-tied it shut. Officer Havel scanned the snow around the carrier. "Any other tracks?" Officer Liu crouched, shining her flashlight even in daylight to catch details. Footprints, one adult. They approached from the path, went behind the shed, then stepped back into their tracks. Caleb whispered, like they didn't want anyone to see where they stopped. Rhea cut the zip tie carefully with small cutters, then paused with her hand on the door. "Ready?" she asked, not because she needed permission, but because she knew what it felt like to open something and not like what you find. Leah nodded, throat tight. Please. Rhea opened the carrier. A blur of fur pressed towards the opening and then stopped, frozen. A small animal, eyes wide, body hunched, trembling. It wasn't a cat, it wasn't a rabbit, it was a tiny dog, a small terrier mix maybe, white fur stained with mud and a red smear on its paw. It looked like it had been trying to chew its way out, nose raw, whiskers bent, breath coming fast. Leah's eyes burned. Oh my God! The dog didn't bark, it just stared, terrified, waiting for punishment. Rhea moved slowly, draping the blanket partly over the carrier opening to create a dark, calming cave. It's okay, she murmured. You're safe. She slid her hand in carefully, letting the dog sniff. The dog flinched, then pressed into the blanket like it wanted to hide inside it forever. Officer Liu's voice was tight. We need to get this dog to a vet, but also, we need to know who did this. Officer Havel looked at the shed door, and then he said something that made Leah's stomach drop again. This shed has a camera. Leah blinked. It does? Havel nodded, pointing above the shed door frame. There, barely visible under a little snowcap, was a small security camera angled toward the maintenance area. Leah's breath caught. So it might have recorded whoever left the carrier. Officer Liu's eyes sharpened. Let's find out. The dog was loaded into Rhea's vehicle first, wrapped tight in the blanket with a heat pack. It didn't fight, it just trembled, eyes huge, like it couldn't decide whether kindness was real. Leah watched the car door close and felt rage simmer under her ribs. Someone had put that dog in a carrier. Someone had zip-tied it shut. Someone had left it in the snow behind a public shed and thought that was fine. Officer Liu and Havel walked to the shed door and knocked. No answer, because it was a maintenance building, not staffed on weekends. Havel called the Parks Department emergency contact while Liu kept scanning footprints like she was reading a story in the snow. A park supervisor arrived 20 minutes later, breathless, keys jangling. He opened the shed and led them inside to a small monitor system. Leah and Caleb waited just outside, watching through the doorway. Officer Liu leaned over the screen, rewinding footage from early morning. The video was grainy but clear enough. The timestamp in the corner showed 5:41 a.m. A figure appeared on the path, hood up, shoulders hunched against the cold, carrying something. A carrier. The person stepped behind the shed, placed it down, and then did something careful and deliberate. They pulled out a zip tie, looped it through the carrier door, tightened it, then shoved the carrier deeper into the drift so it blended into the snow shadow. Then the person turned around and walked away. But before leaving the frame, they stopped. They looked directly at the camera, and they lifted their hand, not waving, showing something. A badge clipped to a belt. The supervisor muttered, confused. What? Officer Havel's expression went hard. Zoom. Officer Liu zoomed. The badge was the kind park employees used, a basic ID, reflective. The figure didn't have to hide. They had a reason to be there. That was the hidden in plain sight part that made Leah's stomach twist. The person leaving a zip-tied dog behind a municipal shed didn't look suspicious on camera because they looked like they belonged there. A uniform hoodie, work boots, an ID. Caleb's voice came out low behind them. So it was someone with access. Officer Liu nodded slowly, eyes locked on the screen. Or someone wearing an ID to make people assume they had access. Havel turned to the park supervisor. We need that video saved, now. And we need a list of who had access to this shed this week. The supervisor went pale. This is insane. Officer Liu's phone rang. She listened, then her expression tightened further. Animal Control just scanned for a microchip, she said, looking at Leah and Caleb. The dog has one. Leah's chest tightened. So it belongs to someone. Officer Liu nodded. And the owner reported it missing 3 days ago. Caleb's jaw clenched. 3 days? So someone had it, then dumped it. Leah stared at the snowy park, Suddenly feeling like the pretty white morning had been a lie, Officer Havel spoke quietly, as if he didn't want the world to hear it. "We're going to treat this as theft and animal cruelty. If this person works for Parks, or had access to Parks equipment, we'll find them." Leah swallowed. "If we hadn't followed those paw prints..." Officer Liu finished the thought. "That dog would have died in that carrier." Leah looked down at the paw prints again, now partially messed up from all the foot traffic. They'd been the only clue, leading from her yard to that hidden spot behind the shed. A trail the dog had made while it was still free, still running, still trying to survive. And the thing that hit Leah hardest was how ordinary it all looked unless you knew where to look. A shed. Snow. A drift. Hidden in plain sight. They didn't go home with a cute rescue story that morning. They went home with police reports, saved video footage, and the quiet sick understanding that someone in their calm little town had been willing to zip-tie a living animal into a box and bury it in snow. All because they assumed no one would ever bother to follow paw prints. But Leah did. And because she did, one trembling little dog got another chance, while the person who thought they were invisible suddenly wasn't.